Okay. No, I'm self-deprecating humor is important. Can you hear it now? Is it good? Okay. Anyway, so again, I'm not a liturgical scholar, but we're just going through this for the benefit of the faithful of the parish to better learn the Pew Book, first of all, and also go through a little bit of why we do what we do and how everything kind of overlaps. Because those that have been exposed to the Byzantine liturgy will know that it is definitely, Byzantine is not just a title or a phrase. If you look up Byzantine, it means like pretty much chaos, okay? Chaotic, and there's a lot going on, there's things all over the place, okay? And so that is, that's just what it is. However, the longer you engage in Byzantine liturgy, the more you will appreciate the variety of the prayer and what is going on. So pretty much the liturgy is set. We're only going to talk about the liturgy of, well, actually, we'll talk about both of them. The liturgy of St. John Chrysostom is our usual liturgy. We have the liturgy of St. Basil the Great 10 times a year. Okay, and those times are the 5 Sundays of the Great Fast, Holy Thursday, Holy Saturday, Christmas Eve, Theophany Eve, and then, I didn't go in order, but we have January 1st, which is the feast day of St. Basil himself, okay? Also the circumcision. Okay, so those are the 5 times in the year that we are prescribed, therefore we are supposed to celebrate the liturgy of St. Basil. And as you may know, that's a much longer anaphora, and then all the hymns within the anaphora are much more ornate and elongated, because there are many more prayers. And so you may have noticed, like today, In You, O Woman Full of Grace, it was very beautifully sung, but the priest was still going. There were still prayers going on because, I got to cover, the priest has to cover everything, his obligation to pray the liturgy. Okay. So for our Pew Book, the Pew Book is set up to give you the basic service. And it tries to give that to you in order. However, some things would be too thick to insert in there, and that really would not make sense. So as unfriendly as this book may seem, in the reality, it's really not that bad. And so as we progress through the main part of the service, you'll see that's why the book has many tabs, right, or many ribbons. You want to keep the ribbon in the part of the liturgy where you are at, because you're going to have to flip away for propers or different parts, or like today, we're going to flip forward to the Liturgy of St. Basil sections, right? But then eventually we will go back to the main, the main structure of the service. Okay? Now, sorry? Oh, okay. However, okay, so I guess I can talk about it as we go through. Okay, so we're going to talk about the different times of the liturgical year. In the West, it's called ordinary time. But for us, the usual time of the year is called the Sundays after Pentecost. So the whole normal time of our year resets whenever Pentecost falls. Because we have in the church what are called movable feasts and then immovable feasts. So an immovable feast would be a set date. We have, God bless you, we have December 25th, Christmas, the Nativity, right? We have many other set feasts. June 29th, Saints Peter and Paul. August 15th, the Annunciation, Dormition, thank you, Dormition. Right, we have all those set feasts, okay? But the whole Paschal cycle, the whole Lenten and Paschal cycle is like a barge in a way, moving back and forth through the calendar year, okay? But then that also resets, because if I'm looking at it this way, it resets when Pentecost is. And so that resets where we are through the years. So that's a whole fixed cycle from when we get to Lazarus Sunday all the way until Pentecost itself. Okay, that whole set is all fixed. Like I said, it moves back and forth depending on the moon cycles of how they determine when Pascha is going to be in that calendar year. Okay, so that sets everything. So one thing that you're going to notice, the one example of how these overlap is the Annunciation. The Annunciation is always March 25th. It must be 9 perfect months because Christ's Mary's term was perfect. He's divine, so it's 9 months for Mary's pregnancy, for his birth. So that must fall on March 25th. Okay, so that is something that kind of, we saw that. I can't remember how many years ago now. Was that what?
4 or 5.
No, more than that.
Is it that
It was more than that. Yeah, I think it was before I got here. 8 or 9 years ago. 8 or 9 years ago, the Annunciation of the Theotokos fell on Good Friday. And for us, we don't change anything. We don't maneuver any feast days. They are when they are. So the question is, how do we celebrate that? Because the Annunciation is a solemn feast day. And in the Typicon, it states, well, I'll tell you what that is. In the Typicon, it states that there's no fasting on Annunciation. However, I just looked it up this morning, and our current calendar has a fish on that day. So I have to ask the bishop or somebody what they really want us to do. Okay, there's the particular law of our church. There's what the priest deciphers from the Typicon and gives it to us in English. And then there's the tradition, you know what I mean? And then so we'll have to see what truly is binding on us. But where are we? The Annunciation. Oh, right, but that day, okay, I think the fasting might have overtaken. I can't remember, to be honest with you. But both of those are monumentally important. The most solemn day of the year with a very important major feast. So both had to be celebrated, okay? So what dictates how all of that is actually prayed out is another volume called, like I just mentioned it, called the Typicon. I forgot to bring it with me. But the Typicon tells us, for a particular church, how we are to celebrate the services. And it's almost like a series of if-then statements. If this happens, then you do this. If Pascha falls on, well, it always falls then, but, it tells us how to overlap all of our different cycles, because there are many different cycles, what I'm going to talk about. Yeah, yes?
So, who does the Typicon? Who makes that up?
Oh, well,
It doesn't come from Rome.
it is promulgated by Rome, okay? So our Typicon, I know this is where I'm lacking in the history, is a certain Typicon for the Slavic churches. So the Melkite church, they will have a whole different Typicon. It'll mostly be the same. Even though they're the Byzantine tradition, they'll have their own Typicons, and that's what each church can really make up its own rules. But those rules have to be approved by Rome to make sure they're not doing anything incorrect or out of the ordinary. Now, likewise, a monastery can write their own Typicon, meaning that they say, okay, in this monastery, these are the services we are going to adhere to, right? They can write into their Typicon that we will pray the rosary, every day at a certain hour. They can omit the rosary if they wanted to. They can add, just saying, because I know one of our monasteries, I don't think that's part of their practice because they're trying to be more Eastern, regardless. But they have that power to do that. And then that Typicon has to be approved by whoever is their superior in a way. There might be an eparchial monastery, then the bishop would have to approve that. Or it could be a general order, I think. I don't really know the terms, but that would have to be approved by Rome or by their superior general or whoever the competent authority is, as the canon law says. So the Typicon, in my understanding, has not yet been fully translated into English. So we have one of our priests, one of our liturgical scholars, who's retired, and he's getting on in years. So I don't know who is going to take over that job. But every single year he translates what is necessary into English. Although I'm sure he has, everything that he's already translated, and he just puts it all into correct order. But that's also who puts together our wall calendar that we have. So he will submit that information to whoever's going to be the printer or whatever, and then they put that together. So that would be the same thing. So right now it is Father David Petrus, and he's from the Eparchy of Parma, but he is retiring in Phoenix. The cathedral in Phoenix has a lot of property around it, and they have, I think, retirement facilities, like little apartments and also little houses that you can rent from them on their property. Sorry?
I said, is that where you're going?
No.
Not
You
for
do-
very, 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 very,
You
very
don't-
long
I
time.
mean, for 50 years from now.
You don't retire. No, I will die. in the parish, most likely, unless I have debilitating disease or something. So, okay. Oh, so the Typicon tells us what to do. So that's why every week, before we make the bulletin, we have to check the Typicon. Okay, what are the readings, right? Because, again, we have a lot of overlapping cycles. So like I said, there's that one cycle that moves through the year. Okay, like I said, we have the pre-Lenten Sundays. We have all the Sundays of the fast. And then Holy Week itself is a whole different fast. So that's why when we're talking about the fasting, we have, which are just traditional, the Meat Fair Week, which is the last week that we're going to eat meat, and then Cheese Fair Week, the last week we're going to eat dairy. Okay, then we enter into the fast, but we count every day of the fast as a fasting day. So the weekends are not lessening, or again, if you're going to no meat, no dairy, no wine or oil, that means every single day. Except the weekends, you can do wine and oil if you choose. And again, that's only the tradition. That's not what our law requires. That's how I have the handout. Okay, the law is very simple. It's pretty much what's on the wall calendar. Okay. However, the fast ends at the end of the Friday before Palm Sunday. So that means there's that Friday, and there's what's called Lazarus Saturday, and then Palm Sunday. And Palm Sunday is actually also complete mitigation of the fast. So you can have your ribeye, whatever you want. That's okay that day. And then the Holy Week itself is in a whole additional fast. So the way that we count the 40 days, those 40 days have already completed. So it's just, and each church can do that. They can choose what they want as long as it's promulgated by Rome, like I said. So then we have Holy Week, right? And then the Paschal season. So same thing, just like beforehand, like in the Lent, the Paschal season is also all fixed. And you'll notice, we have the Thomas Sunday, okay, then the myrrh-bearing women, and the woman at the well, I think, and, a few other, paralytic, right? So like celebrating the miracles of Christ. And first of all, celebrating his resurrection and those who witnessed the resurrection. Then, of course, what does Christ do for us? All these beautiful miracles, right? And then after that, then we have Ascension, which for us is a fixed feast day on Thursday, Ascension Thursday, and is a holy day of obligation. So that's another thing, too, that different churches can choose. That's why we might say, okay, why does the Roman Church have these feast days that are an obligation, but they don't have others? Again, each church, what we mean by church is a sui iuris, which means self-governing church, has the power and authority to make its own law, again, promulgated by Rome. So really, the bishop, which our metropolitan archbishop, is really a very high-ranking Catholic official. Even though we have very few in population in our church, he is the head of a self-governing, self-contained church. Okay, so he is like a patriarch, but he's not. A patriarch would be similar to the Pope of a whole church. The Melkites actually have a patriarch in Lebanon. So he would be similar to the Pope because he's really above a major archbishop, right? But he's just a notch under the Pope. Okay, but he has complete control over his entire church that is his. So they can make their own rules. All right.
But he's not a cardinal.
He's not a cardinal, no. That's a whole separate,
That's a whole different thing.
that's a whole separate, what's the word?
Structure, hierarchy.
No, it's like Monsignor. It's like honorary. It's an honorary title given. Now, it's a whole separate thing. It means a lot. It
Our
means
metropolitan is not considered that at all.
correct. However, our metropolitan, and I don't know where this is in the Roman Church, maybe you can help me, but he receives what's called the pallium. So for the Romans, it's a different vessel. That's what's called the pallium, excuse me, but our bishops wear what's called an omophore. And so it goes around the neck and down. It's different than the epitrachelion, or the stole. It's more ornate than that, but it symbolizes a very big collar, but it symbolizes like the shepherd, so the sheep around the neck. But in the back of that is a relic of St. Peter. So I don't know if anyone, do you know what the pallium is? I'm sorry, I don't know. Anybody for the Roman Church? Okay, well, regardless, they have a relic of St. Peter, and it is given by the Pope. So Metropolitan William has that, but it was not done in a Roman fashion, but in his correct vestment, the omophore. Now, yes, William.
Small question.
Yep.
Does anyone from the Byzantine faith partake in the papal elections?
Does anyone in the Byzantine faith partake in the the papal elections, the College of Cardinals. Right now, recently, you may have noticed on the in the whole pageantry and everything of the new pope that there was one Ukrainian bishop who is in Australia. And he's very young. He's like, what, 45, 47, something like that. He has been made a cardinal. So therefore, he technically was in the conclave and voted for the pope. But there's only one that I'm aware of. There might be, go ahead.
Well, you recently deceased the bishop of the Romanian Byzantine Church, was a cardinal. So for a long time he was in the College of Cardinals.
Oh.
Cardinal
Okay.
He just deceased and they haven't offered that to anyone yet.
Okay. Sorry. Daniel said that he just fell asleep in the Lord, a Romanian archbishop who was made cardinal. And so he has not yet been replaced. What's his name? Slipe? Okay, Cardinal Slipe for the Ukrainians. Oh, never mind. Okay. All right. Yeah. Wait, where am I going here? I gotta. Yeah. Okay, so let's get back to so where are we with the tradition? So that's kind of how we get what our rules are, what our rule book is. Okay? So it's important to know all of that. No, I'm not done yet. I'm not done. Okay, so the Sundays after Pentecost, right? You'll notice if you look on your calendar, your wall calendar, the Sunday is the last day of the week, right? So you'll see, after Pentecost, you'll see the reading schedule restart. Okay, so the readings are pretty much fixed. And they're fixed by, and they're called the Sundays after Pentecost. So it's like the first day is like the first Monday after Pentecost. Well, that's Pentecost Monday. Okay, after the whole Feast of Pentecost. Okay, then again, like I said, the reading cycle restarts. And I believe, I should have brought a calendar. I believe it begins with Matthew. I can't remember. Yes?
Do the readings repeat each year, the same reading, as opposed to the Roman Church where they have the 3 years?
Correct. The question was, how long is our reading cycle? And our reading cycle is only 1 year. So everything is fixed for that year, and it just restarts again. Correct. So unlike the Romans, we do not have a 3-year cycle. But my understanding is in the traditional Roman Latin Mass, it's a similar thing. It's only a 1-year cycle. And we also, you notice, I'm sure, we do not read the Old Testament in the Divine Liturgy, unless it's one of those very special Divine Liturgies, Christmas Eve, Theophany Eve. I can't remember off the top of my head if Holy Thursday, most likely, but definitely Holy Saturday. We will have those because we only read the Old Testament in the Vesper service. So that's where we would get readings from the Old Testament. So if you attend the Saturday night Vigil Liturgy, you'll notice that there is an additional reading. But there's no set cycle. There's just something that some people have kind of created thematically to coincide with the Sunday theme for every day of the year. So that's not official, but it's not bad, So it's not like we're reading from the newspaper or anything, It's Old Testament scripture, so it's very good. But those other ones that are official, those will be prescribed. So if you'll notice, for the weekdays of the Great Fast, so here's another thing. It's all random, sorry. The weekdays of the Great Fast, we cannot celebrate the Divine Liturgy. We cannot celebrate the anaphora. We cannot celebrate the consecration. That is a great jubilation. It is a great, beautiful thing. And so, in a way, we're fasting from that beautiful celebration, but that does not mean that we must fast from the Eucharist, which is why we have a special liturgy called the pre-sanctified Divine Liturgy, which means, in this particular parish, I usually do it Saturday night because, our liturgies are very long and it's just a good divvying up of how to get things done. So last night, I consecrated an extra lamb and extra Eucharist to be reserved until this coming Friday, where we will partake of that in the beautiful pre-sanctified liturgy. And so in that liturgy, and all through the weekdays of the fast, you'll notice there's no gospel reading. There's no epistle reading prescribed for those days, because this is when, during the fast, is when we are going to journey once again through the Old Testament, mostly Genesis and the prophets. Okay? Now, Holy Week, we will read Gospels in that pre-sanctified liturgy. I can't remember if I have it scheduled for that day or not, for Monday or not. I can't remember, but regardless. So that will be in there. So the whole reading schedule restarts, okay, as the Sundays after Pentecost. So that means for the reading schedule, May 15th is not always going to be the same reading, right? It's just going to be wherever it happens to be after Pentecost. Whereas if it was a fixed feast day, then it would be the same reading every single year for Transfiguration, okay? Because Transfiguration's on the same day, doesn't matter what week after Pentecost it falls under. Okay, so you'll see that on your calendar as you're going through. You're like, wait a second, we were just in Matthew, now we're in Luke. What's going on here? It's because, that's particular to that feast day. Or if it's particular to a certain class of saint. So that's another, forgot about that. Okay, so you have the weeks after Pentecost, and then you'll have the different classes of the saints, which will bump whatever reading is for that day of that week after Pentecost. So usually for apostles, for venerable fathers, And when you look in the Pew book, they will be in hierarchical order, okay? And you'll see that for the propers, back in the book. Off the top of my head, I don't know. The cross, the angels, John the Baptist, Mary. There's some order to them there. I'm sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head. But that'll be, and then you'll go, venerable bishop, martyr, or whatever it is. So, the more important the saint days, okay, because those are fixed. Okay, so May 2nd every year, no matter when it falls, is going to be Athanasius. All right, so those are fixed. Okay, but again, if Athanasius outranks the Sunday after Pentecost, then his reading will be on there instead of the normal Tuesday after, fifth Tuesday after Pentecost or something like that. Now, we have another cycle that resets after Pentecost, and it is the tone system. So we have an 8-tone system, which is a theological number. So the last day of the week is the Sabbath, right? So the Sabbath is Saturday. Okay, that's when God rested after creating everything, and that is the Sabbath. However, Christ rose on the 8th day. Okay, he rose after the Sabbath. So that for us has become a mystical day, a day in time, yes, but theologically outside of time. And so we have, that's one of the reasons anyway, why we have an 8-tone system. So when we go through the whole year, this week we just restarted tone 4. Okay, so that 1 through 8, 1 through 8, 1 through 8 will reset also after Pentecost. We'd have to actually look at the calendar to see exactly what's on there. But if you look at your calendar, it'll say tone 8, tone 3, whatever it is. That'll be, I think, on the Sunday. Okay, and so that, which I guess technically would coincide with the readings, but those things don't really have anything to do with each other. It's not like one affects the other, you know what I mean? But those would be, I guess, a cycle that resets through the year. So that's why, for the Sundays of the Great Fast, it's much easier for us to print up propers every single year, because this year, the Sunday of Orthodoxy was tone 4. Last year, it might have been a different tone, and so those two things have to overlap. We need both of those. We can't have one without the other. We're supposed to celebrate it all, okay? So we incorporate both of those, which again, as we know for the tone of the week, for the liturgy propers, there is the Troparia, the Kontakion, the Prokeimenon, Alleluia, and then for our particular liturgy, we will give different melodies for the communion hymn. But really the communion hymn on Sunday is going to be the same. We can choose to do something else. That's not set in stone. That's just the default. If you don't want to do anything else, sing Praise the Name of the Lord, right? Sing the Psalms of Praise to a certain melody. Those melodies aren't the tones. Those A through B that we have in our book, those are just, that's really a lot more to talk about. They're really just traditional melodies found in the different Carpathian regions. I need something to wet my whistle here. Is there any other variety that overlaps? There's one more element. Those that maybe have a very good prayer book, or if you've purchased the Chausoslav, or even in the Pew book itself, for the celebration of the Divine Liturgy or the Liturgy of the Hours, each weekday has also its own commemoration. So when we pray the Liturgy of the Hours, yes, but when we pray the Divine Liturgy during the week, during the normal time, the priest or whoever can choose what set of propers they're going to adhere to. Now, this particular parish, I go by another whole set of books called the Manean. The Manean is, it's one for every month, and then they have the complete set of propers for every divine service and the Divine Liturgy for each saint of the day. Okay, so again, I mentioned May 2nd is Athanasius, so therefore it'll be his Troparia, Kontakion, it'll be all the different odes and everything. Don't worry about all these other words. But everything that'd be possible for matins, vespers, the hours, Compline, if there's anything special for Compline during that day, all of that is written and will be in a book. But we have a very short Manean that we use here, so we pray just like we do, Tone 4, right? We did the Troparia, and today just happened to be the Sunday of Orthodoxy. Those were the propers. Well, likewise, again, using May 2nd, if it's Athanasius, we'll pray his Troparia, Kontakion, and then there's a special Prokimenon on Alleluia specific for a Venerable Father. Okay? However, we can choose another option. We can do the days of the week. And Monday is dedicated to all the angels. Okay, so archangels and angels. Tuesday is John the Baptist. Wednesday is the Theotokos and the cross. Thursday is all the apostles and St. Nicholas. Friday is solely the cross. And Saturday is all the saints and all the faithful departed. Sunday, obviously, again, is the resurrection. Okay? So if we were going to pray something for that day, again, you might notice in the Chausoslav or daily prayers, that would be an emphasis on each day. And you'll see that in the book, too, where they have that. This would be angels, John the Baptist, Mary, cross, apostles, and Nicholas, cross, all the saints and all the departed. And then Sunday, of course, is the resurrection. So that, I think, is the totality of all of the overlapping things. So there's a lot going on. Okay, let's get to the book. Let's go to page 11. Actually, even before page 11, which, if you went to confession today, I gave the same penance to everybody, to pray the prayer of preparation by St. Basil the Great, which is a very beautiful prayer. But just like at this parish, we're praying a prayer of thanksgiving after receiving the Eucharist. If we arrive early at church, or if you want to at home, you can pray this, what we call the prayers of preparation for celebrating the Divine Liturgy. And as you see on page 4, it's a nice little service. It has all the usual prayers, the Trisagion prayers. It has Psalm 22, Psalm 115, Troparia of preparation, and then has these very nice, beautiful, long prayers by church fathers. And so that is something that we can do privately and personally to traditionally prepare ourselves for the Divine Liturgy. Okay, and that's actually another element which we'll go over more when we get to the actual parts of the liturgy, other than just the overview, is that you may notice, if you arrive a little early, you'll see the clergy praying something before they even enter the altar. Okay, so the clergy are to properly prepare themselves as well. And so there's a whole little service in the beginning of, this is the Liturgicon, the priest book. So they even pray a prayer as they enter into the altar, right? So all of these important preparations. And then also more preparation, all the vesting prayers. Each garment that the priest or deacon puts on, there's a certain prayer for each garment. They're very beautiful. And then the whole rite of preparation for the gifts, okay? When the bread and the wine are prepared And we'll go through all of that. That's a whole beautiful service by itself. We also have that on our live stream. So if you want to go to one of our Sunday liturgies, if it's a normal day, you know what I mean, you can see the, meaning, you know what I mean, if the stream was started on time and we started on time and all of that, you'll hear and see the whole service. And it's very beautiful, all the theology that's going on in there. It's a whole preparation, a lot of preparation, which is why we try to have that at the appropriate place, which is why our confession time is a little earlier, than immediately before liturgy. Because all these things, it's really one big long flow. It should be. The door prayers, vesting, proscomedia, liturgy, and then even the ablution afterwards. And even then there's prayers that the priest prays, the deacon probably should, I think, after the liturgy. So there's a lot of prayers, which is good. We need that. Okay, but the faithful also have their own possibility if they want to adhere to the tradition and pray those prayers of preparation before the liturgy. And I often say this, it was very nice. We had 15 people on Wednesday for the Great Compline. And some people, I think, were new to it that were there that night. And they said, wow, that was so nice. Because Great Compline is a monastic service, right? But it's just continuous chanting of psalms and continuous hymns, right? Whereas the liturgy, we're kind of back and forth a lot more, right? The priest, the people, the deacon, all of this, everyone's got their own spot, right? But for that monastic service, everyone's plowing through, and for an hour, and that's a shortened one, is an hour, 10 minutes. You're really Compline would probably be 2 hours or so to pray the whole thing. But we need that time. We need that preparation to, get out all the cobwebs of the secular world and to truly have Christ present there, a place for him anyway to be present, right? So preparation's important. Okay, the Divine Liturgy itself is like the mountaintop, okay? You can't just, it's the base camp. We'll say it's the base camp to get to the mountaintop, right? But you can't just helicopter into base camp all the time. You've got to acclimate, right? You've got to get used to that. Did anyone not get the climbing analogy? Okay, good. So it's a mountain, right? Mount Tabor. Okay. The basic structure. I'm probably not going to get to rubrics. I don't think we'll do that some other time maybe. What is our ability to withstand? Okay, I'll just go until you give up. Yes, no, basic structure now, and then we'll move on, okay? Just because like we talked about all of that, all those different parts. So that's what we're talking about now, okay? So we know, we're on page 11, right? The liturgy begins, and then we immediately go into the Litany of Peace, all right? Which is, again, our petitions. These are all of our petitions, and so when we pray, Lord have mercy, when the faithful respond, Lord have mercy, we're saying, Lord, please give us what we are asking for, or may your will be done, or have mercy on us in your wisdom, grant us the good things that we are asking for our lives, for our nation, for the world, for the faithful, for the departed, all of that. We are asking for all these good things, because what are we doing? We're coming together to pray together, right? But if we just look at these things and we're just, looking around and just singing, Lord have mercy, and have not taken those prayers and petitions in to be our own prayers and petitions, then the liturgy could be boring, right? But when we say, no, we need these things, to be conscious of and to contemplate what is being prayed for, right? Then it's not just rote prayer. Sometimes have young students come in and they ask me, they have canned questions from like different classes, different schools. And they say, okay, what do you think that people misunderstand about your faith the most? So the big answer I give is, Mary in her appropriate place. But I think another answer that I give is, I can see how Protestants or someone coming from the outside would think that we're just saying a bunch of words, and that we're just going on and on and on. It's like, that's one perspective, okay, unless we're actually taking these words in and meaning them and praying them individually. And the more we do that individually, the more it will be done collectively. And then, we have a very good participation at this parish. People sing very beautifully, and that's important. I've been to a few parishes where they didn't sing at all, and I'm like, I don't know what you people are doing here. What are you doing? You're just standing there, as my mother used to say, with your teeth in your mouth. Okay. We have to actively pray the liturgy. Okay, so that beginning part. Now we go to possibilities, right? So possibilities for our liturgy. What is the next section going to give us? We usually have what are called the antiphons. And yes, some people that think that this is an ancient liturgy are correct. However, we have shortened our liturgy in the antiphons here. The antiphons used to be a lot longer, but they have been now shortened to only a few verses. So on a normal Sunday, you'll see here on the top of page 14, it says first antiphon for Sundays, right? So if we are doing that, that's usually what we do during the normal time. We'll sing through that, and then we'll sing right through the second antiphon for Sundays. Okay, and then we see that, and now our book gives us, which is kind of nice, at the end of that antiphon it says, okay, if you've done this, now go to page 18. You can skip the next part, right? Because the next part's not for you if you've already been here singing the first Sunday antiphons. However, if it's a normal weekday, then we would not do the Sunday antiphons. We would do the weekday antiphons, okay? And this is another example also of we don't have a low mass, we don't have a short weekday liturgy. The liturgy is the same length, the same amount of items and prayers in it. It's just the words are going to be different. We'll sing Risen from the Dead, or we'll sing Wondrous in His Saints. Okay, because of course every Sunday is is the resurrection, is Pascha. So we are always commemorating the resurrection on the Sunday, but not on the weekdays. Okay, so there are those weekday antiphons. And there's a third option. We have what are called the typical psalms, which you may know. Now, it does say in here that you can do the typical psalms anytime. Wait, I think so. Wait, this Sunday, wait, in place of the Sunday antiphon. Yeah, it says you can do them many times, but usually some people in our church will choose to do these during fasting periods. And I like to choose that option to make it the liturgy different so that we know we're in a different time, because things are a little bit different in the liturgy. And they're also very beautiful. They're beautiful in and of themselves. And of course, what is one of our tasks during a fasting period is to enact the Beatitudes in our life. Okay? So then we will pray through first and second typical psalm. And you'll notice here there's two different settings for the music. The A is more simple. The B is a little more complex. We've done the A here because that was my will. So, okay, so then after the first and second typical psalm, or the first and second antiphons of either Sunday or a weekday, then we'll go into the hymn of the Incarnation, which we only have, no, we do have 3 settings. We usually don't do the C setting. So that'll always be in there, that hymn of the Incarnation. And then we'll go to the third antiphon, or the third antiphon. If we're doing the typical psalms, then this will be the time for the Beatitudes. Okay, but you see we're progressing through, and again, if we didn't use this option, then we'll use this other option or that other option, but we keep going through the different pages. We're progressing, right? Chronologically or number. All right, this is the little entrance now. Okay, but we'll go into that a little later. All right, and then after the deacon says, elevates the gospel book, says, wisdom, be attentive, and then it depends if it's a Sunday or a weekday. We'll say again, come, let's worship and bow before Christ, risen from the dead, or wondrous in His saints. All right, so that's that whole first section, okay? So now we're approaching, so that's the end of the introduction in a way, and now we are approaching the liturgy of the Word. And actually, it's a good time to insert here. You'll notice that the liturgy, if there are things added to it, if we have, it's not traditional to have a liturgy with a funeral, but we've done that a lot in the United States. It can be done, and if you did, you would have the whole funeral parts first, and then this is the time when you can, so it's almost like, I'm going to say modular sections, if that makes any sense, right? This whole first part can be replaced by the funeral, can be replaced by, you'll notice, the baptism, or if you come to the vigil liturgy, replaced by the Vespers part, okay, which will have the Litany of Peace in it, all right? But this is like the point where the two join, okay? Depending on the Troparion Katakion, but definitely before Holy God. If it's a baptism, then it's going to be all you have been baptized into Christ. Will replace the Holy God that we're approaching. Okay, so then we have the Troparion Katakion, which are kind of names for hymns, but each one has a specific intention or theme. Not intention, but I mean they kind of have different themes to them. Like a troparia, and also if you notice within the tones, sometimes the troparia and Kantakian are the exact same notes and melody. Sometimes the troparian will be a different melody from the Kantakian, even though it's the same number of tone. Okay, actually, there's a lot more on all that anyway, but let's skip it. All right. God bless you. Okay, then we go into Holy God, which we have several different options. Now, there's another time of the year when we will replace Holy God with We Bow to Your Cross. So that'll be on the Feast of the Elevation of the Cross. It's going to come up in a few weeks for the Sunday of the Cross. And there's another one. Oh, no, well, there's the Sunday before the cross, and then there's the cross itself. So I can't remember off the top of my head how many of those contain that. Okay, but then after that, we go into the Liturgy of the Word, which, as you know, is when we have the epistle and the gospel, and then the homily. All right. Now, after here, I think the first part is really the confusing part. So we might actually we're nearing the end here, I think. Then we have another litany, the Litany of Fervent Supplication. After that on page 35, right? And again, I think later on we'll go through the rubrics when we talk about the meaning of everything. This is also on a weekday. I want to put in this little caveat. So when we pray for the deceased within the liturgy, that cannot be done on a holy day of obligation. That does not mean that you cannot offer, one of the liturgies on the holy days of obligation must be celebrated for the living faithful of the parish. Okay, if we have two liturgies, which on not every obligation we do, then the other liturgy can be given for the intention, we put our liturgy intentions, either living or deceased. But if it is for the deceased on a holy day of obligation, which is, again, every Sunday, right, Saturday night, Sunday, then the intentions for the deceased are not prayed out loud, which is why at this parish we usually add on a panihida at the end, because that's when we completely finish this liturgy. All right, now we can pray the panihida. Because, again, if you're mourning, right, you offer those prayers for the deceased. It is much more engaging, right, in just knowing that the priest prayed for your intention. So, and that's another reason why we do that, for us to remember, also to actively pray for the deceased. All right. So that would be done. If it's on a weekday, then that would be done within here. That also can be done during the pre-sanctified liturgy. So most of our pre-sanctified liturgies will have an intention for the deceased. Okay. Then after that litany, we begin into the. I want to look that up in the book here. Yes. Okay. So, regardless, we are entering into. I guess the anaphora technically comes after the Cherubicon. Okay. But as you know, the cherubic hymn, "Let us who mystically represent the cherubim," we have several different settings for that, different melodies, and it's really arbitrary which ones we choose. But usually in our book, not all of them, but the cherubic hymn, the communion hymn, some of the "Blessed be the name of the Lord." No, not that one. "We praise you, we bless you." Those A, B, C, D through F will be the same melodies. But not every A in here is going to be the same. It's just giving you a designation of how many there are of the different melody settings. Okay? Does that make sense? Has people noticed that? Okay, good. There we go. And there can be one for the departed in here. Okay, then we go into, there's not much that's different in here. So on page 55, let's go there, because that's when we know we diverge if it's the liturgy of St. Basil the Great, page 55. And you'll see, again, this isn't the best designed book. It's very simple. Okay, but it says, "Music for the Divine Liturgy of our Holy Father Basil the Great" is found on page 96. And you'll notice for that liturgy also there's two settings. We do the simpler of those settings, because I think it just makes sense to do that. So, actually, I think after that, I'm sure, I hope, A5, right? You woman full of grace, second setting. Yes, so once you flip to the basal section, at the end of, again, the A melodies that we choose, it'll tell you, okay, now go back to page 62. All right? So again, it'll give you the flow through the book sometimes. And so that whole anaphora part, that's that contains the epiclesis, contains the words of institution, is when the Eucharist is effected through the prayers of the priest, asking God the Father to send down the Holy Spirit to bring us the Son. And then after that is actually pretty simple. But I think you understand then the flow of everything. For the most part. Okay, let me go to page 82, if you would. Page 82. And you also know, definitely for the Our Fathers, that there are actually more than 8 settings. Really, the default setting for the Ruthenians that I've grown up with is the tone 4 Podobin on page 74. And I don't know if you've noticed, but in the past few years, I usually put that one in the bulletin for our selection in the Paschal season. Okay, but that would be the default Ruthenian, even though these are all Ruthenian melodies, that's the one everyone sang for years and years and years. But we have these 8 tonal options. Okay. Now, just one more thing about the tones that I said didn't get to it earlier. Just because we have 8 numbers doesn't mean that all those melodies are the same, because each designation can be a different melody within that set of numbers, of tones, okay? So tone 1, like I said, will have, there's what's called the Troparian melody, but the Troparian melody is really referred to as a resurrection tone. So, again, it goes on the Troparian of the resurrection for the Sundays, okay? So that's one melody. But the Our Father tone is what's called the Samuel-Lawson melody. Okay, and that Samuel-Lawson melody is a completely different melody. And for all of them, it's different. So you really have to kind of look in the book and see which one it is. So the Samuel-Lawson melody is applied to the Our Father, but it's also applied to what are called the Stichira of Vespers, of the Apostica in Vespers. Apostica can also be in Matins, which are sections, sets of prayers. They're just, one after another. They're hymns or melodies, but they're all set to the same tone. But they would not be the resurrection tone. They're going to be that Samuel-Lawson tone, which is the tone of the Our Father. So let's do this as an exercise. Okay, page 74, because that's what I had. And then I'll tell you what page. Page 141. Okay, get both of those pages out. Which actually, I apologize. I'm sorry, not 74. That's the Podobin. That's why it didn't really work for me. Okay, 69. Page 69 and page 141. Okay, so on page 69, you'll see it says tone 4. It does say Samuel-Lawson, okay? But Our Father who art in heaven. Okay, and then the Troparian tone for tone 4 is the joyful message of the resurrection. 2 different melodies, okay? But they're both tone 4, all right? And even then, you'll have, like for tone 4, back to page 144, the Kontakion is neither of those. It's, oh, my Savior and Redeemer, has God you raised from the grave all those who were in chains. Okay? And then the Prokimenon is different, and the Alleluia is different. But those are all tone 4, okay? But the Prokimenon would be specific only to the Prokimenon whenever you have a Prokimenon, okay? So, and same thing with the Alleluia. But like I said, the Troparian tone is usually just for certain classifications of hymns, so to speak. And the classification is if it's called a Troparian or not, okay? But these other things are the Samuel-Lawson tones, which again you encounter when you're at one of those vigil liturgies, or if you're at an alternate liturgy of some sort, okay? That'll be the Samuel-Lawson tone. All right. I have exhausted a lot. So, going through the end, and then there's a dismissal. How's that? Cut to the end. And then there's a dismissal. So, so that's the basic structure, in a way, of how to go through all of this. You know, I mean, there's a whole lot to Byzantine liturgy, because we have many other services also, right, which will utilize many of these hymns. And then there's even special hymns, right? There's what's called, in Matins, there's called the earmos. If you come to the Great Compline, you'll notice that each week we're singing some selection from the Matins of the Canon of St. Andrew of Crete. And those will be very ornate, almost Greek melodies. But those will have the numbers 1 to 8, but will have nothing to do with any other established 1 to 8 melody. Okay, but that's what they are. So it's really, I don't know, maybe 128 different melodies. You know, there's a whole lot of different melodies going on. So you will not be bored for decades to come, I hope. That's all I have. So we're going to enter into then what I want to try to do. I need to find a PDF. I forgot to ask Deacon John if he knows if there's. I looked already and I didn't find one. We'll have to go to the Liturgical Underground to find a PDF of the pew book, of the priest's book, because that's what I really want everyone to look at. If not, we'll do it somehow, so that we can really look at the prayers. But most importantly, for our study and for a study in the future, in the pew book, the priest Liturgicon, there is a reference page. So again, in the liturgy, okay, so there's 214 references. And I would say that 75% of those or more are from Scripture. So really, what is our liturgy? Our liturgy is Scripture reordered to tell the story of the new covenant. Okay, so that's what we're going to start looking at next week. All right, have a very good week. God bless you. I gotta turn it off. Yep.
I never thought of it before. They said all of the movable parts of the liturgy are controlled by the moon. All of the immovable are controlled by the sun.
Okay, I get it.
Sounds good to me.
Sure.
Anyway,
Sure.
one more. That's always seemed to be a problem. Now, it wasn't a problem, but, you know, the second Sunday after Pentecost is tone 1. You know, and that's because we stick that one holy day in there. Did that Sunday of All Saints always be there?
Yes, that's a fixed. That's in that fixed cycle. So that's in that fixed cycle. So that'll be after Pentecost. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have one more question, but
Good.
it deals with blessings, and I know you probably want to get
Okay.
that on another day.
Well, yeah, again, and something I didn't painstakingly go through in the book is, but now that you hopefully see the general outline of things, you can, you know, if you can, take some time if you want to, or if you come early to liturgy, you know, look through the table of contents, and then you'll see that that's all the rest of this book is all of those proper parts, right? That's all what's in here. So those movable feasts and immovable feasts, you know, the Triodian, which is the Lenten cycle, the Pentecostarian, which is the Paschal cycle, right? And then all of the classes of the fixed feasts and classes of saints. So all those propers are there. So the whole rest of the book, except a little bit in the back where the Panihida is, you know, and all these other things. So I really didn't cover everything. You know, I mean, a good section of that really is just possible propers through the year. You know what I mean? But now you'll know, okay, if you set that up when you first come in, you know, okay, this is the place where I'm going to be flipping to, and then flipping back to the order, so to speak, the usual order of the liturgy. Okay, so that's all that extra stuff is those possible variable propers.
Since you bring that up, can I say another thing?
Oh, yeah.
There is on the internet a little larger form of contents. I think I gave it to Gary and Diane one time that, you know, explain a little bit more in detail.
Okay.
Okay, I have that in my book, but I don't bring my book every time anymore. And I'm probably going to forget my second question. And there is whatever they call the thing that shows misprints. there is a little
yeah.
page of misprints. Not too many important ones, but there's one or two.
I will print up that extended table of contents. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it's on the MCI website. So I'll print that up for those that would find it helpful. Okay? All right. Ralph?
I mentioned before that every once in a while we sing Slovakian?
Oh, Slavonic.
Slavonic.
Mhm.
Can we get like insert or dates that have that so that those of us don't know the pronunciation?
Yeah, I've had that on my to-do list for 3 years. So let me to do it.
The hymn book, there actually is a little bit.
Oh, the hymnal.
In the spiral, the little hymnal. Which is an
But-
abbreviated version, there is a little bit.
Well, again, we only do it a few times, which is for the Panahida. So you're right. I've been asked in the past to make an insert for that in Slavonic, so we can do that, and then also for the different genders. That's because that is changes in that. And then during the Paschal season, it's in the bulletin, but we can do something with that as well for the Christos Voskres,
And maybe
Voistino
throw in
Voskres.
the one for the deceased.
Right, that's what we're talking
wait,
about.
no.
That's the only time we really. Oh, go ahead.
I know you were talking about.
Oh, Christmas.
What was the other one I was going to say? Oh, God grant you many years. No,
Okay, correct. Thank you. Let me write some notes. All right, and then do them. Yes.
This is something I printed out
Okay.
for us to take a look at that. I got it back, but I can make a copy tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, okay. Oh, perfect. Can you email me? Yeah. Sure. All right. Great. Great. That'll have a clean copy, clean vectors. Very good. All right. Okay. Have a blessed week, everyone. Let me turn that off. You're very welcome. Thank you.
Does
Anarchsis?
that mean beginning or introduction?
I think introduction. Anarchsis. I really don't know, to be honest with you, but I'm
Well, logically, I
Yeah.
thought it would, but thank you.
very welcome. Let me turn this off so I don't look that much of a fool.